She said that I have a woman problem. Nikki, I don't have a woman problem. You have a corruption problem. And I think that that's what people need to know. Nikki is corrupt. This is a woman who will send your kids to die so she can buy a bigger house. This is the problem. Using identity politics more effectively than Kamala Harris is a form of intellectual fraud.
Nikki is attracting fewer and fewer people to her. She's going to have a very tough time in the upcoming election. A lot of people don't like her. Donald Trump used his victory speech to attack Nikki Haley after she vowed to continue her campaign in South Carolina.
I said, wow, she's doing like a speech like she won. She didn't win, she lost. And you know, last week we had a little bit of a problem, and if you remember, Ron was very upset because she ran up and she pretended she won Iowa. And I looked around, I said, didn't she come in third? Yeah, she came in third. And then I looked at the polls. She was talking about most winnability, who's going to win, and I had one put up. I don't know if you see it, but I have one put up. We've won almost every single poll in the last 3 months against crooked Joe Biden, almost every poll. And she doesn't win those polls. And she doesn't win those. This is not your typical victory speech, but let's not have somebody take a victory when she had a very bad night. She had a very bad night.
Earlier tonight, Haley, who lost to Trump in New Hampshire, congratulated the former president on his win, but announced she has no plans to drop out of the race yet. I said, wow, she's doing a speech like she won. She didn't win, she lost, Trump said at the Sheraton in Nashua. Let's not have somebody take a victory when she had a very bad night. She had a very bad night. Standing on stage surrounded by some of his former 2024 rivals, including Senator Tim Scott, RSC, Vivek Ramaswamy, and North Dakota Gov. Doug Burgum. Trump talked about watching Haley head up to the stage to deliver her speech, all dressed up nicely.
I want to congratulate Donald Trump on his victory tonight. He earned it, and I want to acknowledge that. Now, you've all heard the chatter among the political class. They're falling all over themselves, saying this race is over. Well, I have news for all of them. New Hampshire is first in the nation. It is not the last in the nation. This race is far from over. There are dozens of states left to go. And the next one is my sweet state of South Carolina. At one point in this campaign, there were 14 of us running, and we were at 2% in the polls.
It was a moment that clearly aggravated Trump, who had a notably magnanimous tone during his speech after winning the Iowa caucus last week. During that speech, Trump called for unity in the party. This time, Trump declared, "I don't get too angry, I get even." Trump and his campaign have prodded Haley to drop out of the race and have claimed she does not have a path to the nomination now that Trump has won in Iowa and New Hampshire.
All right, we can now make a major projection. CNN projects that Donald J. Trump will win the Republican presidential primary in New Hampshire, the former president scoring his second decisive victory of 2024, delivering a powerful blow to his only remaining major opponent, primary opponent, Nikki Haley. Trump taking a critical step toward winning his third Republican presidential nomination. Again, CNN projecting Donald Trump will win the Republican primary in New Hampshire. And we should note that it has never happened that somebody won Iowa and New Hampshire and then did not go on to win their party's nomination. Kristen Holmes is at Trump HQ. Kristen, big victory for Donald Trump.
Yeah, this absolutely is a big victory. Of course, the big question for the Trump team is going to be, what are the margins? They never thought that he was going to lose. Well, I wouldn't say never. I would say about 2 weeks ago, they were touch and go on what the polling looked like and whether or not Haley could pull this out. But recently, they thought that Trump was going to win. The question was, whether or not it was going to be double digits or a slimmer margin. I was told by one senior advisor they were hoping for at least 7%. Obviously, it's still too early to look at those margins, but there is a lot of enthusiasm and excitement here.
The next nominating contest and chance to secure delegates is the Nevada caucus, where Haley is not on the ballot. After that, the primary continues to Haley's home state of South Carolina, where Trump leads in polls. Trump turned to Scott, who was appointed to the Senate by Haley, and said his endorsement must mean he really hates Haley. "I just love you," Scott replied. "We are going to win this. We have no choice. If we don't win, I think our country is finished," Trump said.
I don't know if he could pray like that to the other side. I mean, it was humiliating to watch what Tim Scott did as a sitting senator. And one time it wasn't even, he wasn't even on the script. He interrupted Trump to pay homage. So I had to say that because it's bothered me all night.
He's doing it right here. It says, "It's just that I love you, Mr. Trump. It's not that I hate Nikki Haley. It's just that I love you," from Senator Scott.
It's not a good day in my life to watch Tim do that. I mean, to think that we fought to see people like him, black, become high elected in the South, and to do that, he has a right to be a Republican, he has a right to do Donald Trump, but to do it in such a way that is so humiliating was troubling. Let's put it that way. I'm trying to be as nice as I can.
Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley is growing more defiant in the face of Donald Trump's efforts to push her out of the 2024 Republican primary race, poking and prodding at the former president and encouraging supporters to wear Trump's attacks as a badge of honor. Returning to her home state Wednesday, Haley mocked Trump's victory speech in New Hampshire the night earlier, one in which the former president raged about the concession speech Haley had just delivered.
This is a great, great state.
Former President Trump overnight on a winning streak and on attack after becoming the only Republican in a competitive primary to win both Iowa and now New Hampshire.
This is not your typical victory speech, but let's not have somebody take a victory when she had a very bad night. Who the hell was the imposter that went up on the stage?
Mr. Trump clearly furious at former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley's pledge to stay in the race and deny him the party unity he wants, promising to keep up his barrage in her home state.
They will head out to South Carolina, where I think we're going to win easily. But I felt I should do this because I find in life you can't let people get away with bullshit.
The former president even targeting Haley's appearance at her speech earlier that night.
And when I watched her in the fancy dress, that probably wasn't so fancy.
Haley speaking soon after the New Hampshire results came in, sharpening her attacks.
She said Trump pitched a fit, called him insecure, and declared he should feel threatened, without a doubt. She cast doubt on his mental competency, the same line of attack Trump and his allies have long leveled at President Joe Biden, and dared Trump to debate her one-on-one. "Bring it, Donald," she said in North Charleston. "Show me what you got." Haley's increasingly pointed attacks on Trump come amid pressure from many Republicans for her to drop out of the 2024 primary race so that the party can coalesce around the former president, who is seeking a third consecutive nomination.
We have, the question is Nikki Haley going to drop out? I keep telling people, she drops out when the money dries up, and the money isn't drying up thus far because these mega billionaires, they do need an off-ramp, and she's going to be the last person standing. We know Donald Trump cannot stand women. He definitely can't stand women of color. And I know Nimrata Radwana doesn't want to say that she's a woman of color, but she is. And so she will feel the ire of Donald Trump sooner rather than later. But why get out, right? On the back end, we know she'll write a book. She'll get a television deal. She'll get money for speaking engagements. Why jump out? Yes, it will be embarrassing that you'll lose South Carolina, since almost every Republican elected has endorsed Donald Trump. But she still gives many Republicans a hope that their nominee won't be someone who is devolving into, delusions of grandeur, authoritarian and dictatorial tendencies and the like. So I'm definitely worried about our democracy, but it's no surprise that the billionaires haven't jumped ship with Nikki Haley thus yet.
Polls show Haley is far behind Trump in South Carolina, where many of her former allies have turned on her, and the Republican primary electorate is much more conservative than that of New Hampshire, where she lost to Trump by 11 points. Still, she remains a thorn in the former president's side, provoking his ire in ways the 2024 Republican presidential contenders he's already dispatched never did. And Haley's aides say that's intentional. Her campaign is bracing for Trump to go too far in attacking Haley and believes those attacks are likely to boost her support in South Carolina. One campaign official said Trump's attacks would be a key piece of Haley's pathway to winning over Palmetto State voters ahead of the February 24th primary. It's the same strategy she used in her home state in 2010, when she seized on allegations of affairs and racist attacks to fend off 3 Republican primary rivals in the governor's race.
If I may. So foreign policy experience is not the same as foreign policy wisdom. I want everybody at home to note that I was the first person to say we need a reasonable peace deal in Ukraine. Now a lot of the neocons are quietly coming along to that position, with the exceptions of Nikki Haley and Joe Biden, who still support. And I think those with foreign policy experience, one thing that Joe Biden and Nikki Haley have in common is that neither of them could even state for you 3 provinces in eastern Ukraine that they want to send our troops to actually fight for. Look at that. This is what I want people to understand. These people have, I mean, she has no idea what the hell the names of those provinces are, but she wants to send our sons and daughters and our troops and our military equipment to go fight it. So reject this myth that they've been selling you, that somebody had a cup of coffee stint at the UN and then makes $8 million after, has real foreign policy experience. It takes an outsider to see this through. Look at the blank expression. She doesn't know the names of the provinces that she wants to actually fight for. And there's her puppet masters right there, the donors right there that are playing her like the puppet masters.
Hold on.
Those attacks were one part of why she won, the campaign officials said. South Carolinians didn't like it then, and they won't like nasty attacks now. Now she is an enemy. With Haley refusing to drop out of the race, Trump has shifted from viewing her as a primary rival to a full-blown enemy, and has grown increasingly angry with her, sources close to the former president said. Before she was a gnat, now she is an enemy, and Trump plans to bludgeon her in the lead-up to South Carolina. A person who spoke with Trump following his victory in New Hampshire told CNN.
2 states have voted, and they're 2 small states. 2 small states have voted. Donald Trump has won both of them. We have never seen a Republican presidential candidate win both Iowa and New Hampshire and then not win the nomination. So yes, he is far and away the front runner. Is he the presumptive front runner? The presumptive nominee? Not yet. There's a lot of voting left to go. But Nikki Haley, New Hampshire was the state that she was best positioned to win of them all. She didn't. She got closer than she got in Iowa. She managed to vanquish all the rest of her opponents. She has that one-on-one race against Donald Trump that she's wanted all along. And finally, she has begun to take the fight directly to Trump in a way that she simply wasn't during the campaign. Now she gets a chance. Nevada, as you were discussing, is really not in play because of the rules and how it was set up. So the next big state is her home state. So can she win there? Well, she was elected governor twice. She was reelected overwhelmingly. But it's a real uphill battle for her. I mean, true, Democrats can vote in the Republican primary in South Carolina. I'm not sure how many of them will actually want to do that to vote for Nikki Haley. And she goes to a state.
He is also targeting Haley's donors, warning that they'll be permanently barred from his orbit if they continue to contribute her campaign. Nikki Birdbrain Haley is very bad for the Republican Party and, indeed, our country. Her false statements, derogatory comments, and humiliating public loss is demeaning to true American patriots, Trump posted on his Truth Social platform Wednesday night. Anybody that makes a contribution to Birdbrain from this moment forth will be permanently barred from the MAGA camp. We don't want them and will not accept them because we put America first and always will, he said.
Yeah, well, James, I guess count me amongst the political class who says this race is over because, as you note, I'm from South Carolina, as is Nikki. She's losing by 35 points in her sweet home state, and you just can't do that. Not only can't you do that nationally in terms of what the perception is to voters, critically the perception of donors, She talked about the political class. Let's talk about the donor class. If she loses her home state by 35 points, the money is going to stop. And in our system, money is the lifeblood of politics. So she has a real serious problem. Personally, and the folks I talked to in South Carolina, we fully expect her to drop out before the South Carolina primary. Why? If she loses South Carolina by a huge margin, it actually hamstrings her going into 2028. It would do nothing but invigorate folks like Ron DeSantis or other potential 2028 challengers if Nikki Haley can't even win her home state or gets crushed in her home state. So there's a lot more downside, perhaps. Now, if she sees some polling data that says she's coming back in South Carolina, she's got a chance, she might stick around. But right now, the conventional wisdom amongst those in the admittedly political class is that she does not have a chance in her home state.
Haley's campaign leaned into those attacks Thursday, releasing t-shirts emblazoned with the words "barred" permanently. Haley posted a photo of the new t-shirts on social media saying, "Enough said, grab your shirt here." Haley also told supporters in North Charleston that her campaign had already raised $1 million after her concession speech and Trump's election night address in New Hampshire. Trump's latest attacks are an escalation of weeks of digs at Haley, who served as his U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. He has also falsely suggested Haley is not eligible for the presidency. Haley, the daughter of Indian immigrants, was born Nimarata Nikki Randhawa. She has gone by Nikki since childhood and took her husband, Michael Haley's last name after they married. The attacks were reminiscent of Trump referring to former President Barack Obama by his middle name, Hussein, and demanding to see his birth certificate. It's a little bit of a takeoff on her name. You know, her name, wherever she may come from, Trump said of Haley on Fox News. Ramaswamy also referenced the Federalist Papers and called her comments disgusting. Here's what they would say to Nikki Haley if they were alive. "Get your heels off my neck and go back to England," he wrote, referencing a slight about her high heels she directed at him during the third Republican presidential debate last week. Nice try, Nikki. Anonymous speech is a core part of free speech, which the founders would know, since many of them, including Alexander Hamilton and James Madison, wrote anonymously. Conservative activist Charlie Kirk wrote.
The beauty of the Nikki Haley for President campaign is that it's a national Rorschach blot. If you have any interest at all in the condition of the United States or its future, obviously you are passionately, by definition, opposed to Nikki Haley becoming president because she has no interest in the United States or its future. But if you are completely bought in to the class of people who currently run the country and who are running it into the ground, then you're all in on Nikki Haley because she's, in effect, your puppet. So it's really interesting to see people's reaction to this campaign. And most telling of all, pretty much every permanent fixture in Washington is either supportive of Nikki Haley or isn't saying anything about it. And that brings us to our next guest. He is Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. And as he assessed the presidential race, his reaction was the following. This is a paraphrase, but it's basically what he said. He said, "I'm not exactly sure who I'm for. I know very well who I'm against. I'm against Nikki Haley. So against Nikki Haley that, on principle, not personal, that he announced a new movement called Never Nikki."
Digital strategist Greg Price joked Haley had decided that enough was enough after being ratioed over an X post about her high heels serving as ammunition. Is Nikki Haley aware that the Federalist Papers were written by founding fathers using pseudonyms? Nikki Haley may be one of the most warmongering and authoritarian candidates for president in some time. She's completely unhinged. This is blatantly unconstitutional, journalist Glenn Greenwald wrote. Dan Caldwell, the vice president of the Center for Renewing America, also referenced the Federalist Papers and added that the ability to engage in anonymous speech has been a central pillar of the American conception of free speech since our founding. Other users accused Haley of wanting to eliminate free speech, called her comments horribly authoritarian, and warned that her idea would lead to conservatives being fired from their jobs for expressing their opinions. A number of staffers and supporters of DeSantis also took the opportunity to target Haley. "I am no lawyer, but isn't this blatantly unconstitutional? Free speech includes anonymous speech," DeSantis Rapid Response Director Christina Pushaw wrote, while Noah Jennings, the Iowa political director of pro-DeSantis super PAC Never Back Down, suggested Haley might expand the Patriot Act to police thought crime. Haley's campaign responded to the criticism in a statement to Fox News Digital, saying, "We all know that America's enemies use anonymous bots to spread anti-American lies and sow chaos and division within our borders. Nikki believes social media companies need to do a better job of verifying users so we can crack down on Chinese, Iranian, and Russian bots. That's common sense."
Governor DeSantis is hitting you for claiming the retirement age is, quote, way too low. He said, quote, "I don't know why she's saying that." So are you saying that? Where do you stand on that?
I have never once said that.
Nikki clearly shouldn't be chasing the presidency. She's clearly not going to have anyone supporting her. Friends, do not forget to comment on this video and watch other shocking news on the channel.